So in the United Kingdom right now, there's this huge storm gathering. But it's not about wind or rain. It's a clash, a collision of deeply held beliefs about freedom, safety, and who gets to be in control. It's a fight for our public spaces, not just the ones on the streets, but the ones right here, on the screens in our hands. Let's get into what's really at stake.
This, right here, is the central question we're going to unpack. In Britain, a country with this long, almost legendary history of dissent, the government is literally rewriting the rule book for how people can speak their minds, both out in the real world and online. And honestly, the fallout from this is changing the very definition of free speech.
You know, to really get what's happening online, we first have to look at what's going on the ground. The UK has seen some of the biggest demonstrations in its recent history, turning city streets into these battlegrounds for ideas.
And look, this isn't some new thing. As Lord Hoffman famously said, protest has just woven into the fabric of British history. I mean, think about it. From the suffragettes all the way to today's climate activists, it's supposed to be a right, a cornerstone of democracy. But that cornerstone, it's being tested like never before.
Yet we're not talking about a handful of people here. We're talking about massive rallies, like the Unite the Kingdom demonstration, that have pulled hundreds of thousands of people into the center of London. That sheer scale, it just shows you how deeply divided and motivated people are to make their voices heard on huge issues like immigration and national identity.
These quotes, wow, they just lay the whole thing bare, don't they? The raw emotion, the massive gap between the two sides. On one side, you have people who feel like they're being overwhelmed, who want to reclaim a sense of what their country means to them. And then on the other side, you have counter-protesters looking at the very same event and seeing a dangerous rise of fascism that they feel they have to stop. These are completely opposing worldviews, clashing right out in public.
So, all this conflict out on the streets, well, it's triggered a pretty powerful reaction from the government. It's led to a whole wave of new laws aimed at managing both the physical protests and the digital world where these movements get organized in the first place.
And just look at the speed of this. In just a couple of years, the entire legal landscape has been radically changed. The 2022 Act gave police way more power over street protests. Then, boom, the massive 2023 Online Safety Act switched the focus to the internet. And now, the courts are pushing back, saying some of these new powers were brought in illegally, which just adds this whole new layer of chaos and uncertainty to everything.
Okay, this is where a tiny change in wording has these enormous consequences. The police used to need serious disruption to step in. Now, it's just more than minor disruption. I mean, what does that even mean? It's so much lower, so much more subjective. It gives police way more leeway to shut down a protest and start making arrests. And, as you can imagine, human rights groups are arguing this makes the right to protest fundamentally weaker.
And this right here, this is the critical pivot in the whole story. That same political drive that's cracking down on physical protests is now being aimed squarely at the internet, which has become our modern town square.
The Online Safety Act, it's a beast. It's one of the most ambitious and, frankly, controversial pieces of internet legislation anywhere in the world. It basically forces platforms to be responsible for users' safety, and if they don't comply, they face these colossal fines. But you see the tension, right? It says they have to remove harmful content, but they also have to protect democratically important speech. That's a very, very difficult tightrope for anyone to walk.
So what this does is it puts the platforms we use every single day, Meta, Google, X, you name it, directly on the front line. It forces them to become the referees of what is and isn't acceptable speech under UK law.
This was the part of the debate that got everyone talking. The original bill wanted to give the government powers to force platforms to remove content that was legal but harmful for adults. That raised huge free speech red flags. Now, that part was eventually dropped for adults, but the basic idea is still there for content that kids might see. And that creates this massive gray area for platforms trying to figure out what they're supposed to censor.
You can bet the tech industry's reaction was fast and pretty furious, especially on one key thing: privacy. Companies like Apple and Meta came out and warned that to follow the law's scanning requirements, they might actually have to break end-to-end encryption, the very technology that keeps our private messages private. Their argument was simple. You can't build a backdoor that only the good guys can use. Once a lock is broken, it's broken for everyone.
And hey, this isn't just some abstract debate for tech nerds. It's already changing how people in the UK use the internet. You're starting to see mandatory age verification pop up on all sorts of sites. And what's the reaction? There's been a massive spike in people in the UK downloading VPNs to try and get around these new digital borders.
This push for control is creating a powerful countermovement. The thinking is, if you can't speak freely in the old town squares, maybe it's time to build new ones.
So all this new, more restrictive environment, it's leading to a fascinating countermovement. As the mainstream platforms get more and more regulated, some people are starting to ask a pretty radical question. What if we just build our own spaces?
This question really gets to the heart of what's happening. People are frustrated with the new rules. And instead of just fighting for a little bit of space on a platform somebody else controls, they're asking, why don't we just build our own?
It really boils down to this fundamental choice. Think of it like this. On one hand, you can rent space on an existing platform. It's easy, sure, but you're just a tenant. They control your data, they limit your growth, and they can change the rules or kick you out whenever they want. The other option is true ownership. When you build your own platform, you own everything. The data, the software, the rules. It's true digital independence.
And the really cool thing is, this isn't just for tech geniuses anymore. With all the no-code platforms out there now, you don't have to be a developer to build a community. The process is much more about your vision, knowing who you're building for, picking the right tools, and then just launching it and making it better based on what your members actually want. It's become something anyone can do.
Now, this idea of building your own space, it's bigger than just one website. It's part of a much bigger shift in how we think about the internet and what it could be. Some people are starting to call it Web 4.
So let's define that. What is Web 4? Well, it's basically a retreat from the commercial web that we're all so used to. The world of endless ads, algorithms designed to make you angry, and constant data harvesting. It's a cultural shift back to an internet that's built for users, not for advertisers. It's all about owning your own little corner of the web instead of just renting it from big tech.
And the magic ingredient that makes all of this work is a concept called federation. The absolute best way to think about it is email, right? You can have an Outlook account, I can have a Gmail account, and we can still talk to each other perfectly. Federation does the exact same thing, but for social media. Your independent community can connect with other independent communities, creating a whole network of networks instead of a bunch of walled gardens.
To really get why this moment is so important, it helps to see how the web has evolved. Web 1 back in the 90s was basically read-only. Then Web 2 came along and gave us read and write. Web 4 is proposing the next logical step, adding that crucial third piece, own. It's about taking all the creative power we got from Web 2, but adding digital ownership and control right back into the hands of the users.
Which brings us right back to where we started. As the rules for what we can say and do get tighter and tighter on the big platforms, we're left with this really powerful question. Is the answer to censorship not to fight for a spot in someone else's town square, but to just pick up the tools and start building our own?